Why do so few Americans own Amazon shares when they're such happy customers? Ross Stevens, fund manager, wrote a letter for his fund investors. I think it's the year-end letter of 2020, and he asked that question. And I think it's an interesting question I want to discuss here because it has to do with the fact that we have a problem with compound growth. We humans, the species, we're not evolved to understand compound growth. It's not something that we're particularly good at, and I think it's because for millions of years we did not have compound growth. This is a very recent phenomenon, and it's accelerating, and it's something that we just aren't evolved for, and therefore we miss it. This is the Not Even Wrong podcast. It's January 25th, 2021. This is Krim Delko. For the day, the fund is up 3.8%. The market is up 30 basis points. We are up roughly 27% for the year. The market's up 2.5%. We're outperforming by 24.5%. So Ross's question goes back to some fundamental misconceptions in the market. So his question is, how come people don't own more Amazon stock? And the answer is, in the last decade or even more, 10, 15 years, doesn't matter how far back you go, Amazon on average always went up by 130, 150%. So it always more than doubled every year. And people always think the same thing. At the end of the year, they say the stock doubled, so we missed it. Let's wait for a correction and then get back in. It's something that we're observing now with Tesla. We have investor pressure, even in our fund, to take profits, to get out or take profits or something like that. And every time we have that conversation, the question is always, well, take profits versus what? Meaning, if I sell my Tesla shares, what do you want me to do? Hold the cash, buy something else? What is the purpose of taking profits? And the answer is, well, it's overvalued. The question then comes, how is it overvalued? Well, it went up 8 times this year. Okay, fine, that's a huge return, but over the last, 6, 7 years, it also just went up 8 times, maybe 10 times. So yeah, it's a very strong return, but who says that's a bad return? And who says that's overvalued? How do you know? And I think these questions are open-ended. I don't want to discuss this necessarily, but there's one thing that almost nobody ever brings up, and that is the power of compound. The power of compound, or the power law of growth, the compound interest, compound knowledge, compound the power law of the innovation stack. If you build a battery architecture that can drive a car more efficiently, you're building the base for a semi-truck that can be more efficient. You're building the base for energy storage that can be used for utilities. Then you're building the base for a decarbonized energy infrastructure. And one little thing could lead over many steps of innovation stack to a massive improvement in a very, very big market, which is the energy market. There's another concept from physics that I like, and that's the concept that we are sometimes small and sometimes big. So relative to physics, depending on how we look at things, we're very small relative to the universe, particularly the visible, observable universe, which is 14 billion light years large, and then we're very big relative to things like bacteria and things like that. There's a very interesting way to think about our size in terms of information processing. In terms of information processing, we're extremely large because we have the ability to process extremely complex experiences, at least from our vantage point. That makes us very large. So I think it's another way to think about companies and ask yourself the question, what is a large company? Is Tesla large? Well, Tesla is large relative to where it was, maybe relative to the amount of cars sold and things like that. But is Tesla large relative to the market that they're attacking? Is Tesla large relative to the compound potential of its innovation stack? That question is not so clear. In my view, the answer is no, it's not very large, particularly the market cap is not large. So we have that same problem like the Amazon potential Amazon investors, which is, I think Tesla is running away almost always from the natural, comfortable way of looking at valuation. The way we are used to looking at valuation is things grow 10, 20%. And that's, I think, because we as humans, we tend to progress like that. When we're in school, our kids progress by 10, 20% per year, maybe 30%, some kids faster, some kids less. My son's a professional. I mean, he's not professional, but he's a very dedicated soccer player. He's 13 years old, so obviously he's not professional, but I call it a professional player in the sense he trains 6 times a day, 6 times a week. He has all the ingredients of a dedicated professional player. So, but his progress is not exponential. There's some innovation stack building there. For example, the technique that he's building on right now, the muscle memory that he's building on, I think it's going to pay off when he's 18, 19, when he's larger, has more muscle, and then still has that kind of reaction, that speed of reaction that combined with the muscle, then will make him a much better goalie than, let's say, somebody else who isn't. By the way, he's a goalie. That's why. Uh, uh, so there are some compound effects or some innovation stack like features that he's pursuing, but nevertheless, as a human being, without technology, without things like Neuralink, without attached intelligence and computer power, we're just not able to exponentially grow. We just don't. So machines can do that, computers can do that. We have that ability to generate exponential growth, and that is a recent phenomenon. Going back to the beginning of infinity, David Deutsch, we are at the beginning of infinity. The human species has enabled itself to be put in a position where with creative growth we can solve problems, create problems, solve them, create new problems. We are able to, we are part of a progressive society, an exponential society, and that is a recent phenomenon. It's only a couple of 100 years old. It has happened in the past with the Greeks and back in Persia and so on and so forth. But we are now at a point where we have gotten escape velocity, and although it's very precious and our enlightenment society is constantly under threat, like we saw 2 weeks ago when the Congress of the United States was stormed by fanatics. So clearly we're not out of the woods, but we still have this ability to generate exponential growth. We have the ability to algorithmize life sciences through the CRISPR revolution. This is going to build a massive IT-driven life science industry for the future, the same way the transistor has driven a massive digital revolution in the last century. So the same way we're going to see this in this century. And I think those are exponentials that we just can't grasp. We don't have the ability, the brain power, the experience. We don't have analogies to build on. So we just have to blindly believe in it and say, well, this can be, we can't have 40, 50, we can have 50% compound growth for the next 10 years for Tesla, which would make the stock a 50,000, maybe $30,000 or $40,000 stock. That is possible. That is absolutely in the realm of possibility. And some people, of course, scratch their heads. Others say, well, it's not humanly possible to do that. But we've done it before. We've done it as a society. We've done it as countries have done it, the United States. I think what it takes is what we've discussed in the past, the mechanics of progress, which is the two massive ingredients. One is creative problem solution. The other is Popperian criticism. As long as we abide to those two vectors in the mechanics of progress, as long as we abide to those, we have the potential, we have the chance for exponential growth. Doesn't mean we're going to achieve it. There is still execution risk. But as long as those two vectors are given, I think we have a good chance to experience that. And then the question, of course, as a shareholder is, or here the question is not, is the stock overvalued or not? It's irrelevant. The question is this a compound company? Is this a company that follows the four principles that our fund follows, based on 0 to 1, innovation stack, the innovator's dilemma, and the beginning of infinity? If those vectors are playing in this particular situation, we have exponential growth. We have the beginning of infinity uh, actually happening. It is happening. It's not just theory. It's not just um, it is happening. And when it's happening, then compound growth becomes a driving force that is way beyond our parochial viewpoints, such as, well, the stock is up 50% for the year. That how can it go even higher? Or the stock has returned X% over the last couple of years, or has outperformed the Nasdaq, or all these things that we use, these parochial measurements of performance, they really aren't very helpful. And we're in the realm of, like Ross Stevens says, well, if Amazon was up 170% for the year, I'm not going to buy it. It's too expensive. We're constantly chasing this particular phenomenon, and we're just never going to buy it. And we recently had an investor ask us, shouldn't we take profits on Tesla? And the answer is no, we shouldn't. There's only two reasons we would sell Tesla. One is we don't believe in the compound growth potential of Tesla anymore, which is driven by fundamentals in the business, driven by the innovation stack, driven by the creativity and the Popperian criticism that we think is necessary to generate the kind of growth that we expect the company can generate. Or we have a better investment opportunity. We have something that is even better. We have something that fits even better into our mission, and therefore we choose to invest there. Like for example, we have some of our capital invested in the cell therapeutic, genomics, synthetic biospace. So there's only these two reasons. Like I said, our degrees of freedom as a hedge fund manager are what to invest in. That's it. Typically, that we don't have any other degree of freedom. Of course, we can always get out, but that is not up to us. It is up to the company to keep growing, and then we decide to pull the trigger or pull the plug when that growth doesn't happen anymore. But we don't really control that. It's the company. So what I meant with we only have one degree of freedom is it is only our control to allocate capital to a certain situation. That's it. There aren't other degrees of freedom. And the compound, the growth of compound, the power of compound, the power of the power law, which is a subset of the idea of compound, is so powerful, and we're not evolved for that. So we have to co-evolve with it. We have to almost become like that. It's an evolutionary process. It's like doing yoga. It's like exercising. You have to adjust your body and your mind to that idea, because we're not naturally evolved for that. This is the key message of this episode. Thank you.